Hello and welcome to the reading from the Sacred Discourses of Agasthiyar Vazhipaadu. Today, we will be actually reading from the book Agastya, the Siddha Principles. The topic covered today would be meditation, as Sage Agastya has talked about it. In that book, we read, someone asked a question to Sage Agastya. What is meditation? What kind of meditation should people, practice? So Sage Agastya says, this is a good question. I will give you the duty of explaining about meditation to the people of the world. It is a time when people are in search of meditation after going through much trouble and suffering. While there are many who are available to teach meditation, there are differences in the way they teach it. No matter who teaches meditation or through what method, the foundation of all types of meditation is the one developed by Maharishi Patanjali. So Appa is saying here, he is first talking about what is happening in the world. People are going through a lot of suffering. There's a lot of challenges. In the Western world, there's a constant talk about the word stress. Oh, I'm so stressed. I'm so anxious. We have more mental illness diagnosis in the Western world than I think I've ever heard in my life. There's ADHD, there's anxiety disorder, there's bipolar disorder, all kinds of ranges of mental disorders. So why is all this happening in the current world? Because our lifestyle has changed. Our lifestyle has changed from the time when everything was done at a slower pace. We had somebody at home taking care of the family and the children, with somebody else going and making the living, bringing the money to bring up the family. Then society itself, which we can still see in some of the countries like India, was like a counseling session, because if somebody was upset, they would go talk to their neighbor or to their families. And when there was, joint families, everything was shared, the burden was shared. But as the world has changed, as the communication has bombarded everybody each day, and as nuclear families came into being, and as the need for more and more money has become such an important thing in life, people are losing the most important thing, which is peace of mind. So when all that happens, they start looking for ways to find it. So how are they doing it? By going to meditation classes. So Appa says, now, if you look at the world, there are different types of meditation being taught all over the world. There's all kinds of names to each one of them. For example, in Kriya Yoga, you have at least 10 different types of Kriya Yoga being taught. They just have different names for the Kriya Yoga, which is just one major type of breathing technique and meditation technique. But everything Appa says stems from the basic principles, the Ashtanga Yoga of Maharishi Patanjali. Because when Maharishi Patanjali laid out the steps of meditation, he made sure that it was all very, very clearly laid out, that it went from one step to the other. It was a natural process that he saw and described and wrote about. Now, that is what Appa Agastya is going to teach us today. And he does it so beautifully, showing us, when I first heard about Patanjali Yoga Sutras and I was trying to learn those names, pranayama, pratyahara, it didn't make much sense to me until I started reading how Appa Agastya has explained so very simply for people like us in the modern age. Then Appa says, changes have been made in the way of practicing the different steps given by Patanjali Maharishi. Some have their students sit in meditation straight away, give them a mantra, and ask them to chant it. If we observe it closely, there are very few who have progressed with this method of teaching meditation. Now, what is Appa meaning? What is happening in the current world? People, just like they go to a gym class, just like they go to a dance class, they go to a meditation class. Many of the people who teach meditation are not well versed in meditation themselves. They themselves don't know what they're doing. So they just tell, okay, now you got to sit, we'll play this music, we'll sing this bhajan, now you start chanting this mantra. But what Appa says is, has that changed the person? And he says, no. That kind of teaching meditation is not helpful. Now let's continue to see what he says. Knowledge must be the foundation of all types of meditation. It is easy for one who has understood knowledge to take up meditation. So what does Appa mean when he says knowledge or wisdom? Say, for example, you go and sit and meditate. You go to class and they say, sit and meditate. Do you know why you're sitting? Do you know why you're breathing in a certain way? Do you know what your ultimate goal is? So if you don't know all this, then sitting in meditation for half an hour and saying you've accomplished something is not going to help. And that's what Appa is saying here. Then he continues. So let us explore what type of knowledge is the foundation of meditation. So now, what Appa is doing here is he's not only telling people who are reading the books or his discourses how to meditate, he's actually laying out a textbook for gurus to follow if they're so inclined to actually teach a method of meditation in an effective way, so it actually changes a person, because meditation should show the change in the behavior of the person, the way the person moves, the way the person acts. How much do we see that in the current times? We see a lot of people who go to meditation classes, they go to temples, churches, mosques, come back, they're the same, nothing has changed. So what is the knowledge that one must gain before even thinking of meditation? Those who desire wisdom must first understand themselves. So first, understand yourself, Appa says. You're not just Anu, you're not just a woman, you're not just a mother, a daughter, wife. You are a soul. So what is the soul? Those who desire wisdom must first understand themselves. Who am I? Where have I come from? Why was I born? What are my duties? What is the soul? What is the mind? What is the body? What is the relationship between these three? Now, how many of us really know that? We identify ourselves immediately based on how the social network sees us. As a person with this particular social security number, with his driver's license, with his address, as a husband of somebody, a wife of somebody, and working in a place, that is the identification we have currently. But that identification is only superficial. It is there for the sake of, living in a social framework. But who you are is very different, because you have to know, where have I come from? I know the basic thing is, I was born to these people. But where were you before that? Where did life start? Why was I born? What is the purpose? Are we all born to, grow up, go to school, go to college, get a job, have a family, get married, have a family, and then grow old and die, and do a few things in between for entertainment, and maybe produce a few things that you can share with the world? But is that all life is about? There's something deeper. And that is why Vazhipaadu lays the foundation, or Appa lays the foundation of knowledge in Vazhipaadu. He talks about creation, he talks about the soul, he talks about why we are here, the purpose of life. So if anybody wants to meditate, I would suggest, as Appa has said, first know all these things. Now, how many people even know that there is something called a soul? We all think the mind is the brain, and they're all together, and that's all there is. But consciousness is much different from the mind. Brain is only an organ. Then there's the mind, which is connected to the individual ego, which is the manifested soul. Consciousness is beyond all that. And in meditation, that is what we're going to know. We're going to understand the unity in everything. We are going to understand the meaning of Pindandam and Brahmandam, or in English, microcosm and macrocosm. So what is the relationship between this body, this mind, and the soul? Where does consciousness come into all this? If we don't understand all this, what is the point of you sitting down and meditating and saying, oh, I have chanted this mantra 1008 times, I am good to go? Are you? How has it changed you? And that is what Appa is trying to tell us here. Let us continue. He says, once a person has understood this, they must understand what meditation is and how to meditate. Importantly, they must understand why they are meditating. I have already given explanations for the questions posed above. So now Appa says, so understand why you're meditating. What is the goal of your meditation? Yeah, sure. There are some people who would just want to find peace of mind. But how do you find the peace of mind? By chanting something, by being involved in some activity, and then going back and getting back into the same, hole that we were all in, where we are constantly worried about something that has happened. We are anxious. So Appa says, understand why you're meditating. What is your goal? If we say to tell somebody, okay, you have to become liberated, what does that mean? Where are you liberating from? What does liberation actually mean? Yes, one of the basic things that everybody says is it is, getting free of the cycle of birth and death. Okay, but how do you get free from the cycle of birth and death? What is it that you need to know, and what is it that you need to do to get away from the cycle of birth and death? Is only meditation enough for householders? No, because we are living in a world, in a society, in a community. We are going to be facing challenges every day based on our karmic pattern. So if we create more and more karma without understanding why, how it affects us, then we're going to keep coming back. So Appa is saying, understand all this before you even begin meditation. Know what liberation means. Who is a Jivan Mukta? One who is living in the body, who is in this world, but knows that he is not the body. He is no longer that identification that society knows him by. When he realizes he is one with the absolute, like Ramana Maharishi, that is a Jivan Mukta. That is liberation. When you look at everything and realize all this is illusion, Maya, but how do you know that? You just don't know by just sitting down and meditating for a few days. It's going to happen because of knowledge. That is what Vazhipaadu is all about. It is Jnana Yoga, putting the foundation of knowledge before we actually sit in the act of meditation. Now, why is knowledge important? Once we understand what is karma, why the cycle of birth and death, then that knowledge helps us to walk on the path of Dharma. So now you see the foundation of meditation begins with Jnana and Dharma. Both go hand in hand. Once you have Jnana, then that is the result of walking on the path of Dharma, or Dharma is connected to Jnana. So wisdom and righteousness go hand in hand. One who is walking on the path of righteousness has understood wisdom. That is the evidence of wisdom. Righteousness is the evidence of wisdom, as Appa himself has said in Vazhipaadu. So now he says, now let us look at the second part of the question about meditation and how to meditate. So let us begin with the seat. He says, asana. Asana is how one must sit in a place before beginning meditation. Usually, it is important to have a separate place for meditation. The place should be clean. It is best that it is a little away without a lot of movement of people. It is also good to designate a place where there is no sound. This must be chosen based on what is appropriate for each person based on the situation. Now, very simple thoughts. Are they really simple? Because you have to understand the meaning behind every one of these things. It is important to meditate. Most of us, the beginners, we all have to sit down to meditate. We have understood that. We should have a separate place for meditation. Why? If you understand that every place that we inhabit in this world has energy, then you understand the energy in your living room is different from the energy in your bedroom, is different from the energy in your bathroom, and it's different from the energy in your prayer room. So, what are the thoughts that occur in these areas? Think about it. In the kitchen, someone is thinking about food and cooking and all those things. In the living room, it's all about worldly items. You see TV and you're talking about the news and what the neighbors did and what this happened, that happened. When you come to the prayer room, or if you have a place for meditation, then your thoughts automatically are about something higher than normal life, an activity that is beyond these things. So that is why Appa says, have a separate place for meditation. Because if you sit in a bedroom or in a living room in the beginning stages, all that energy is going to affect your meditation. Then he says, the place should be clean. Now, this is very important again. How many of us have puja rooms that is full of clutter, or our home is full of clutter? Start decluttering. There are many reasons for this. Everything that you have in the house has energy. The more things you have, the more kind of complex energy you're bringing into the house. Clean it. Get rid of things that you no longer need. Keep it as simple as possible so that when you sit down or when you get up, you look at clean surroundings. Your mind doesn't go into, oh, I have to take this out. I have to clean this. I have to maintain this. Or you don't spend time searching for something because you can't find it in all that clutter. So place should be clean. It is best that it is a little away without a lot of movement of people. So why is that? Because as beginners, we were easily distracted. So Appa says, try to be a little away from people. Then he also says, designate a place where there is no sound. So if you're sitting in the living room and the TV is on, that's not going to help you meditate. That's a very basic thing. Then he says, all this must be chosen based on what is appropriate for each person based on the situation. Now, Appa is again very practical. He's saying, whoever wants to meditate, think of all this, but also look at your situation. You might be in a small home where you cannot have a place to meditate by yourself. Then maybe try to find a place where you can go out and meditate. Maybe you can go to a temple, find a quiet corner and meditate. Maybe you can go for a walk and sit in a park and meditate. So find a place that is good for your situation. And he says, it is good to sit in natural surroundings. It is best if one can sit under trees like the banyan tree that give shade. It is also good to meditate in an area with water like rivers, streams, waterfalls, ocean that has waves. So he's saying, try to be in natural surroundings, but because the energy that is produced by a tree, the trees do have energy, is more relaxing to the body and the mind. That's why if you see a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to go hug a tree. There's a reason behind it, because the tree has the strength that energy that we can actually absorb. So the water also, flowing water especially, is constantly clearing the energy. So that is why when you take a dip in a river or in an ocean, you are getting cleansed, not only bodily, but your energy is getting cleansed, because ever-flowing water does not allow energy to get stagnant there. Then Appa says, if one is unable to find such a surrounding, one can sit in the prayer room in one's own home, or they can sit in a clean place in the house. And it's also hard to meditate while traveling, which is also true, because when you're traveling, you have people around you, there's all kinds of disturbances, it's hard to meditate. So if you can't, then, if you're traveling and you want to connect to God, do something simple like chanting mantras internally without disturbing anybody. But if at home, if you don't have a place, then try to find a small, quiet place if you cannot go out into the nature in your home and try to meditate there. Another thing that we could do is also think of the time. Everybody gets up at 6 o'clock, then try to meditate before that, things like that. Then he says, in the olden days, people would meditate on a mat made of grass. In the current times, it is best to sit on a cushion made of natural products, or you can sit on a wooden platform. Why? Again, natural products like cotton, wool, Their energy is different. They conduct energy differently. When you sit on something like polyester, nylon, and all these fancy, beautiful looking meditation seats, it's not going to help the free flow of energy within yourself, because that's what's going to happen when you meditate. You're going to start internalizing everything, and you're going to be focusing on energy flowing within your own body. Then Appa says, tiger or deer skin is generally used by those who are difficult and advanced level of meditation. Those that meditate like this are normally rishis or brahmacharis. It is also good to sit on a grass, on top of a mound, or on a platform underneath a tree. So he's saying advanced practitioners who do more difficult type of pranayama and meditation techniques prefer to sit on skins of animals. And that is by rishis, great rishis, or brahmacharis, celibacy. Somebody who is able to maintain purity in the body can sit on something like that. Otherwise, it will have an adverse effect on them. So then Appa says, so sit on a mound or a platform underneath a tree, but find a place that is suitable for you. Next comes time. Meditation can be done at any time. The ideal time is before the sun rises or before the sun disappears in the night. For those who are advanced and sit for a long time in meditation, the best time is midnight or at the period that is known as Brahma Muhurtam. So he's saying the best time to meditate is the dusk, night, or before sunrise. Why is that? As soon as the sun rises, what do you hear? You hear the muezzin's call from the mosque. You hear the temple bells ringing. You hear all the people in the neighborhood walking around, loud noises, voices, vehicles moving. The energy gets completely mixed up. So midnight or Brahma Muhurta, which is between 3 to 5:30 a.m., is a great time to meditate, because those are times very few people are awake. And mostly people who are sattvic or have that kind of a vritti, who are more spiritual in nature, wake up early. If you see, those who are more tamasic are ones who will sleep. They sleep till 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. That itself shows tamasic qualities. So a rajasic person may get up because he's full of activity, but sattvic person is one who wakes up with sublime thoughts of being in God's presence. And that is the kind of energy you want to connect to. Then Appa says, those that meditate several times a day need a silent area. Such people may meditate in a place where there is not much light. How many times one can meditate is based on one person's situation, will, and discipline. And there are many among us who sit and meditate several times a day. But how is it helpful if you're sitting in a place where there's a lot of light and there's people moving around? So Appa says, try to find a secluded place which is more quiet and meditate. Most beginners are able to close their eyes and sit in meditation in one place only for a very short time. Appa says, that is true. A lot of us, when we first begin to start to meditate, we can only sit for a few minutes. However, Gnanis that have gained a higher stage in meditation have no such limitations. They can sit anywhere, anytime, and meditate for as long as they want. Those that are higher than this are always in meditation, even if they're involved in worldly affairs. Even in their sleep, they are in meditation, Appa says. So while beginners have to think of all these things, advanced practitioners, so even Gajaraj Swami, he would just sit in meditation anytime. We would be talking about God and he would go into meditation, he would go into a trance completely. That is an ability only higher evolved souls have. And then there are people like Ramana Maharshi who didn't even have to sit and meditate because he was constantly in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He was constantly in the presence of God. He could walk, he could talk, but he was always, God was with him. So in such cases, even when they sleep, they're connected to the divine energy. How does that happen? Think about simple things. When you're watching a movie, you see something very sad happening, you start crying. There's a connection going on there. Let's go to a higher level. You're listening to a beautiful devotional song and you start crying again because emotions have that strong magnetic force to connect to energy, and you begin to connect to the divine energy of the guru or God you're talking to or thinking of. You're reading a book, especially books like Vazhipaadu, the Bhagavad Gita. They carry the vibration of those that have given it to the world, like Agastya. So when you read those books, you are connecting to their energy. So when you're connecting to that kind of energy constantly, there comes a time when without your awareness, you are connecting to higher energy even in your sleep. Now, Appa says, let's go to posture, asana. How must one sit? That depends on the person's age and situation. Normally, those that practice yogasana can sit in padmasana, which is lotus position with legs crossed over each other, ardha padmasana, and other such postures. For those who are unable to easily sit in such postures, sukhasana, which is an easy and comfortable posture, or any position where they can sit naturally, is best. It is important to sit straight with eyes closed, looking upwards. If the head is bent, the person will very soon fall to sleep. Now, what does all this mean? So now you know you have a place to sit for meditation. How do you sit? If you are limber, if you're youthful, if you're practicing yogasana and can get into different positions, then sit in lotus position. Circulation of energy is beautifully done in that. But if you're much older and you've begun this whole thing very late in life, if your body for any disease or any other reason cannot bend, then sit in a position that is natural where you can sit without straining your body for a longer period of time. So in this case, how comfortably you can sit for a longer period of time becomes more important than what kind of posture you assume. Because we have to learn that everything shouldn't be cut and right, like, oh, you have to sit in this position, even if it hurts you. Then somebody who cannot sit in that position is thinking more about the pain than thinking of what they're trying to do while meditating. And so far, we haven't even come to the idea of meditation. We are just beginning. The basics are being taught to us by Appa in a very beautiful way. So, and when sitting, remember to sit with your eyes closed, looking slightly upwards. What does that mean? When you keep your eyes closed, then you raise your chin just a little bit and focus here. Then you are connecting to the level of super consciousness. When you do this, you're connecting to the subconscious. This is waking conscious when you're looking straight, lifting your chin just a little bit and focusing there is super conscious level. Now, what happens when you're in a waking state? You cannot go into rest or you cannot calm yourself because you're thinking of things that you need to do. You're looking at things. But if you bow your head just a little bit when you're sitting, very soon you'll be sleeping. That is why you hear a lot of people snoring when they're meditating, because the posture is not correct. Remember, meditation is all about energy. Life is all about energy. Everything is energy. So that is what we are all going to focus on. Then we're just going to do mudras for today and then do the rest of it next week. Then Appa talks about the mudras or hand positions. These are necessary for advanced practitioners of meditation. Those that wish to meditate at a higher level must learn some mudras from their gurus. Each mudra has the power to create a certain state in each human being. Every hand position has the capacity to facilitate the flow of energy in the body and mind. So why did we have so many mudras that in our classic shastras? Because holding a finger like this or doing this, when you're doing, Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, all that, everything has a meaning. Everything facilitates the flow of air and energy in your body. And Appa says, in the beginning, if you don't know anything, just sit with your hands placed upwards, on your palm, on your thighs, that's okay. But if you're highly advanced, then find out what mudra is important for you for flow of which part of the body, which chakra needs to be activated. So that you learn from a guru. So at this point, we are going to end today's talk about meditation. We have learned some very basic things, and we haven't even begun to start understanding what meditation is all about, how to actually meditate. So we are just learning the preliminaries of meditation. So we'll continue next week again. Okay.